Chapter 49-25. The young lady's skin was exceptionally fair. So even the slightest trace was extremely clear and visible. Is it Jianghu? The man's tone was slightly cold. Yiqing Luo held his big palm and shook her head. It's all right, it doesn't hurt. Diamo Xian's eyes were filled with a thin layer of coldness. How dare she lay her hands on you? The man's low and hoarse voice was like a sharp ice needle. Don't worry, she is after all the Overlord's woman, she will not be bullied in vain. Yiqing Luo cupped his face with both hands. She has already received her punishment. Her long and narrow eyes curved as she playfully blinked, and I can confirm. The power behind her is indeed very mysterious. Diamo Xian's emotions had not yet calmed down. Yiqing Luo could only appease him first. After appeasing Diamo Xian's anger, she then concisely told Diamo Xian about her conversation with Jianghu. Diamo Xian's slender fingers gently stroked the mark on the young lady's neck, his eyes filled with heartache. Yiqing Luo smiled. It really doesn't hurt, she was worried about you so she didn't dare to be ruthless. There will be no next time. Diamo Xian's voice was hoarse. No matter where I go, I will tie you up and bring you along. Yiqing Luo's pink lips pouted. All right. The man slightly lowered his eyelids, his tone was somewhat gloomy. Even under my eyelids she could hurt you. This is not your fault, you have protected me very well. Yiqing Luo patted the man's back and changed the topic. What did you say to grandfather? Since he can bring me the pastries made by Granny Feng, does that mean grandfather agrees for us to be together? Diamo Xian gently pulled her into his arms, his slender and strong arms, tightly wrapped around her waist. He asked us when are we planning to get married. Yiqing Luo quietly and obediently nestled in his arms. Her curved charming eyes were filled with dependence and tranquility. Grandfather is afraid that someone would snatch away his precious granddaughter. How did you do it, to make him acknowledge you? He even took the initiative to ask when you are going to marry me? Diamo Xian's voice was clear. I told him I am willing to marry into his family. Yiqing Luo? She might have heard it wrongly. Listen to it again. I'm willing to marry into your family. The man unconditionally satisfied her request. Yiqing Luo. Are you crazy? Marry into his family? He was the great Dizun. He actually wanted to marry into her family? Wasn't this too damaging to his demeanor as a big shot? This was a little too much. I'm serious. Diamo Xian lowered his eyes and looked into the girl's eyes. His obsidian eyes were filled with sincerity. As long as I can be with you, that's enough. Yiqing Luo's heart was like a colorful firework, exploding with a loud bang. Her porcelain white face was dyed crimson. Her enchanting eyes were filled with deep affection and seemed to contain endless gentleness. She curled her pink lips and stared at the man's obsidian eyes. She said word by word, Ah Xian, I love you. There was only one sentence left in Yiqing Luo's mind. Love him, accompany him, unwavering. Yiqing Luo's arrival. She had directly replaced Qing Ji's position. Now the one accompanying Diamo Xian to rummage through the ancient books in the study was Yiqing Luo. But perhaps Jianghu was poisoned and didn't have the energy to run in front of the both of them. No one sent any meals to the both of them. But Diamo Xian was around. As for the food, there was no need to worry about it. Time passed. A day had passed. Jianghu had yet to appear. Yiqing Luo admired this woman's ability to endure pain. Seventh Miss who likes trash. Overlord, please be gentler with your love. Seventh Miss who likes trash. Overlord, please be gentler with your love. Chapter 49-26. She moved her hand. Naturally she knew how strong the poison was. Jianghu first felt weak and dizzy, but her consciousness was extremely clear. Following that, she clearly felt a piercing pain in her body as if it was being pricked by needles. What kind of experience was it to be powerless and in so much pain that she couldn't even move? Just ask Jianghu and you will know. Anyway, Yiqing Luo expressed that she absolutely couldn't take it. Originally she thought that Jianghu would probably endure for 4 to 6 hours before she couldn't wait any longer and ran over to look for her. Even if it wasn't to beg her for the antidote. Wouldn't it be to forcefully ask for the antidote? But Jianghu seemed to have disappeared. There was no sign of her at all. Yiqing Luo put down the ancient book in her hand, her long and narrow eyes raised as she looked at the man opposite her with a smile. The black-haired man had a head full of black hair that was as thick as the finest ink. It was unbound and scattered over his shoulders like a piece of silk that was spread out, black, shiny, and soft. His slender jade-like fingers were holding a book. The man quietened down, his entire person looked slightly lazy but cold and noble. Yiqing Luo's mind, suddenly a sentence popped out. A man like Jade, unparalleled in the world. Yiqing Luo's eyes were sparkling, her gaze was almost glued to him. This burning gaze made the man who was looking at the ancient books slightly raise his eyes and meet her sparkling eyes. In the young lady's eyes, there was a touch of amazement because of his face. The man's peerless face revealed an even more bewitching evil smile. What's the matter? A low and mellow, The ending rose like a feather, floating on the heartstrings. Yiqing Luo blinked her long curly eyelashes, her charming eyes rippling like a pool of spring water as she smiled and raised her eyebrows. She didn't speak. But the man could tell what she was trying to express at one glance. He put down the book in his hand. Bored? Yiqing Luo nodded her little head. I'll accompany you. Diamo Xian pushed the table full of ancient books aside, stretched out his hand and held the young lady's hand. Yiqing Luo shook her little head. No need to go through so much trouble, her room is just next door, you can slowly look through here, I'll just take a look secretly. To tell the truth, she was still rather curious. What kind of method did Xianxia use to endure the poison of the needles? Anyway, it's next door. It was okay to sneak a peek. If he was discovered, he still had the teleportation secret technique. He did not panic at all. Diamo Xian also thought of this point and did not stop them. His slender, jade-like fingers pinched the girl's wound. His voice was low and deep as he warned, be careful. Don't mess around. Come back after you've seen it. Call me if there's any danger. Yiqing Luo's eyes curved into crescents as she nodded her head like a chicken pecking at rice. All right, my dear, no problem, my dear, I will obey Ah Xian's orders. Don't say that you know and then forget. The man pinched her face again. If you're not back in an hour, I'll pick you up. Yiqing Luo was pinched in pain as her little hand hugged his big palm. She stared at him while muttering indistinctly with grievance, You look like you're worried about your own daughter's father. Who asked you to be so naughty? Diamo Xian poked her forehead. Don't run around. If you let me know that you've left my sensing range in future, I'll really tie you up. Under his repeated assurance, Yiqing Luo walked out of the study room. Xianxia specially placed the study room not far from her own bedroom. She could reach it in just a few steps. Waste 7th young miss. Overlord, please be gentler with your love. Waste 7th young miss. Overlord, please be gentler with your love. Chapter 49-27. Yiqing Luo looked at the distance between the both of them as she clicked her tongue. Tsk Sima Zhao's intentions were known to everyone. But unfortunately her Ah Xian didn't fall for this trick. Yiqing Luo's pink lips rose as her vision surveyed the surroundings. The Palace of Darkness base was built underground. Other than the Palace of Darkness disciples' side, which was illuminated by the luminous pearls. This place, which was known as the Forbidden Grounds of the base, was in complete darkness. Only Qingji's room projected a faint glow from the luminous pearls. Yiqing Luo thought for a moment. She didn't go over from the main entrance. Instead her figure flashed as she hid herself in the darkness and silently bypassed the front door and climbed towards the back of the room. According to the design here, the room in front was the bedroom's front hall. The inner hall was the resting place. Yiqing Luo went one round and through the closed window, she was able to determine the position of Qingji's inner hall. She just leaned over. She saw the luminous pearls on the window projecting a few elongated figures. Yiqing Luo immediately stuck to the wall to prevent her own shadow from being seen by the people inside. Princess, bear with it. An old voice which was intentionally suppressed was heard from inside the room. She could faintly hear Qingji's suppressed moans. Then after a while, that moan seemed to be unable to be suppressed. It turned into a painful scream. Just a cry. But very quickly it was blocked by something. Quick. Hold the princess down. That old voice anxiously commanded. The shadows in the room swayed as the footsteps were messy. Yiqing Luo listened and there were about 4 to 5 people inside and all of them had extraordinary abilities. The room was in a mess. After some time, that painful moan started to slow down. Grand Warlock, can the poison in Princess's body be cured? The person who asked was an extremely young-sounding lady. The old voice sounded tense as though he was unwilling and helpless. I've tried my best. Who is it that dares to poison the princess? Another man gnashed his teeth in anger. The old man who was addressed as Grand Warlock spoke in a deep tone. If you want to cure Princess, you can only let Princess tell us who the person is and we will ask for the antidote. But the princess doesn't want to say anything. I know who it is. A cold male voice rang out. That distance made Yiqing Luo jump in shock. Because the voice came from right in front of her, very close to her. In other words, she and the man in the room were only separated by a window. What the F***ck? Scared the hell out of me. Yi Qingluo's body tensed up, not daring to move recklessly. Who is Huan Tu? The woman asked anxiously. The cold man's tone was very cold. The princess was poisoned, but you are not willing to say who it is. There can only be one person, and that is... No. Chapter 49-28. Qingji's breathing stagnated for a moment as she spoke in a hoarse voice. How can this poison hurt me? Your Highness, this poison. The Grand Shaman was a little ashamed. I've only read about this kind of poison in the ancient books, but I have no idea what kind of poison it is and how to cure it. Useless. Qinggu reprimanded him sternly. You can't even cure a useless poison. What qualifications do you have to be the Grand Shaman? Qingji's words were full of anger, not leaving any face for the Grand Shaman. The Grand Shaman's face turned red, embarrassed and angry, and he didn't say a word. The woman quickly broke the deadlock and comforted her gently. Your Highness, you can't be angry now. Tell us, who is the person who poisoned you? I won't beg her, I can snatch it. The woman was Qingji's personal maid, Huan Luo, and she could tell that Qinggu was feeling awkward at this moment. Snatch. Qinggu snorted lightly, her tone was full of ridicule. Do you think you can snatch it? She was the one who suffered. Hadn't she thought of forcing Feng Qingluo to take out the antidote? But that slut had the overlord by her side. With the protection of the overlord, no one could get close to that slut. What's more, it would alert the enemy. If the overlord found out the existence of the power behind her, the overlord would definitely investigate thoroughly. Isn't the person who poisoned the princess a useless person? Huan Luo was puzzled. Useless person? In front of the window, the man who was addressed as Huan San spoke indifferently. Which useless person do you think can make the princess suffer? Huan Luo. It seemed like there wasn't anyone. Their clan's princess was one of the strongest among them. She was the hope of their clan. To be able to make the princess become like this. How could he be a useless person? Huan San. Qinggu shouted angrily. Huan San turned his head away and didn't say a word. He turned his head. Huan San's gaze was directed towards the direction of the window. Under the bright light of the luminous pearl, he could vaguely see a black shadow moving outside the window. Huan San's expression froze as he shouted, Who is it? He suddenly made a move, slapped open the tightly shut window and flew out. Huan 3, what's wrong? Who? Who's outside? The expressions of the people in the room changed greatly when they saw Huan 3's movements. They all cautiously rushed out. Outside the window, under the illumination of the luminous pearl, there was no sound. It was a deathly stillness. There was no one around. There was no sign of life either. They chased after him. He looked around. Huan 3, didn't you find someone? Why don't I see anyone? Someone asked. Huan 3's expression was cold. He furrowed his brows and looked around suspiciously. Just now, I clearly saw. If there's someone, how can he escape our senses? Aren't you being too sensitive? Huan 3 pursed his lips and carefully sensed for a moment before saying, perhaps. They slowly returned to the house. Right then, standing on top of the wall, Yi Qingluo, who was using the lush trees as cover, was shivering. She didn't expect that person called Huan 3 to be so sensitive. He immediately discovered her existence. Luckily, she had the secret art of teleportation. She teleported to the top of the wall in minutes. Trash 7th young mistress. Lord Dizun, please be gentler with your love. Trash 7th young mistress. Lord Dizun, please be gentler with your love. Chapter 49-29. She retracted all of her aura. Even her breathing was extremely careful. Those people didn't discover her. She who was hiding in the dark. She even saw those people's looks clearly. That person called Huan San was dressed in black, his hair combed neatly, and there was a long sword by his waist. From his attire, he should be a secret guard. Behind him was a man and a woman, also dressed in secret guard attire, and a black-robed great sorcerer with white beard and white brows. But the most eye-catching thing was, it was the huge totem embroidered on those people's clothes. Like a bolt of lightning or like a splash of ink, the edges outlined a dreamlike ripple. That totem was very unfamiliar. Yi Qingluo had never seen it before. She memorized the shape of the totem in her mind. Later on, she would copy it for Ah Shen to check on it. Through the broken window, the few people in the house had already disappeared without a sound. Leaving behind Qinggu, who was lying on the bed with a face full of pain, her body twisting slightly. Yiqing Luo originally wanted to see if this Qinggu had really found the way to cure the poison. She was so stubborn that she didn't come to beg her. Now she saw it. Yiqing Luo had no interest to stay any longer. She retracted her gaze and flipped down from the wall. The moment her feet landed on the ground, her pupils constricted, and the expression on her face darkened a little. Her feet moved and her petite figure retreated swiftly in the darkness. Following that, she turned her head and looked behind her alertly. In the darkness, a tall figure was faintly discernible. Yiqing Luo's heart tightened slightly. There was indeed someone. She had been discovered. She squinted her eyes slightly as her vision wandered around, calculating the time she left the other party's sight. But that figure's sleeves were like floating clouds reflecting into her eyes. Yiqing Luo's vigilant expression instantly disappeared. She frowned and asked uncertainly, "Zhu Wuxin?" Yiqing Luo. In the darkness, the man's cold and slightly hoarse voice rang. Indeed, it was Zhu Wuxian's voice. Not knowing if it was because she recognized Zhu Wuxian, or for some other reason, she poked at Zhu Wuxian's sore point. The man's usual cold voice carried a hint of a smile. "What are you doing here?" Yiqing Luo didn't answer his question, but instead asked back, "Why are you here?" "I saw that you were here, so I came over," Zhu Wuxin replied indifferently. His gaze fell on the wall. "This is the direction of Qing Dove's room." Yiqing Luo replied unhurriedly, "Know yourself and know your enemy, and you will emerge victorious in every battle. I'm here to take a look, this woman who has the guts to covet my man, what's so worthy for me to guard against?" Zhu Wuxian walked towards Yiqing Luo from the darkness. His eyes were especially black in the darkness. As though towards Yiqing Luo's reply, there wasn't much feeling or reaction. Yiqing Luo's gaze looked downwards at his chest. "Your injury? Worried about me?" Before she could ask, Zhu Wuxin had already interrupted her. The man's tone was somewhat joyful. Yiqing Luo pursed her pink lips slightly, her gaze was calm. "Your injury, after all, was inflicted by me." The joy in Zhu Wuxian's eyes didn't diminish. "For you to ask this, it means that you're still concerned about me." Yiqing Luo took a deep breath, as she couldn't be bothered to tell Zhu Wuxian clearly that she wasn't concerned about him. Anyway, Zhu Wuxian wouldn't listen at all. She directly turned around, preparing to leave. "Don't you want to know Qing Dove's identity?" Behind her, the man's tone was indifferent, but the words he said made Yiqing Luo's footsteps suddenly halted. "Seventh Miss who likes trash. Overlord, please be gentler with your love." Seventh Miss who likes trash. Overlord, please be gentler with your love. Chapter 49:30. Zhu Wuxian. Knew Qing Ji's real identity? He would say this out loud. This meant that he also knew. She already knew that there was a hidden powerhouse behind Qinggu. Yiqing Luo's eyes sunk as she turned back to look at Zhu Wuxian's eyes. "Since when have you been following me?" Zhu Wuxin must have seen what had happened in the clear pigeon house. So he was watching her from the dark. She secretly peeked at Qinggu. But she didn't know that she was also being secretly peeked at. Indeed, she would have to pay for what she did sooner or later. Shivering. It scared her to death. "Not long ago." Zhu Wuxian said calmly, "That's not important. What's important is, if you want to know, I can tell you." Yiqing Luo didn't move and there wasn't much change in her expression. No need. She didn't want to accept any goodwill from Zhu Wuxian or any help from him. Otherwise it would become more and more troublesome. Anyway, towards the mysterious powerhouse behind Qinggu. She wasn't in a hurry to find out. Anyway, even if she knew what kind of powerhouse the mysterious powerhouse was, she couldn't do anything now. The longer it drags on, the more troublesome it will be. Zhu Wuxian's eyes dimmed for a moment, but he continued, "Moreover, even if you want to investigate, you won't be able to find anything. With Xian around, there's nothing I can't find." Yiqing Luo's pink lips curled as her tone was obviously distant. "Master Zhu, I don't need your help. Thank you for your kind intentions." She said that, and without any hesitation, she stepped into the darkness. She didn't even turn her head back. A strange light ridicule sounded in the darkness. A figure walked out from the darkness. That figure stood behind Zhu Wuxian as his voice was sinister and sinister. "Pavilion Master, have you given up?" Zhu Wuxian stood at his original spot, not saying a word. The black shadow chuckled again, a chilling chuckle. "No matter how much you try to express your feelings, she doesn't love you, and she won't be willing to accept any of your feelings. Pavilion Master, don't tell me you still don't understand. Because she doesn't love you, she can hurt you unscrupulously, trample on your heart, treat you like a dreadful beast and avoid you like a fly. Your nearness to her is a great annoyance. The Black Shadow's words were like needles stabbing into the most painful part of Zhu Wuxin's heart. Even Zhu Wuxian's frosty expression changed slightly. The Black Shadow slowly walked closer to Zhu Wuxian and said in a low, bewitching voice, "Pavilion Master, previously, about the deal I discussed with you, you can carefully consider it." Bang! Zhu Wuxin waved his hand. Rays of profound light shot out. The shadow in front of him was split into two halves. However, there was no blood. Thick yin qi spread out from the black figure. The voice of the Black Shadow that had been split into two continued, "Pavilion Master, I'll wait for you to change your mind." His words fell. The two halves of the body turned into dust and dissipated into the air like ashes. When Yiqing Luo returned to the study room, Dmo Xian was still sitting in front of the table flipping through the ancient books. Hearing the sound, he raised his head and looked at the young lady. His obsidian black eyes were filled with gentleness and pampering. "Have you played enough?" Almost went overboard. Yiqing Luo patted her chest exaggeratedly as she leaned towards Dmo Xian. "Guess what I saw at Qingji's side?" The young lady's mysterious look made Dmo Xian's eyes smile. He stretched out his hand and embraced the young lady. His smile instantly congealed on his face. His expression also sunk slightly. "Seventh Miss who likes trash. Overlord, please be gentler with your love." "Seventh Miss who likes trash. Overlord, please be gentler with my love." Chapter 49-31. His hand pressed on the young lady's shoulder as his deep inky eyes squinted slightly. "Who did you meet earlier?" Yiqing Luo was about to tell Dmo Xian about what she heard outside Qingji's room. Being questioned by Dmo Xian, she instantly swallowed back the words that were about to come out. The man's gaze was deep like a deep pool, unable to see the bottom. Who did she meet? Who could she meet? She just went to Qingji's place for a stroll and then Yiqing Luo's eyes widened. "Zhu Wuxian? It's indeed him." Dmo Xian's eyes flashed past a sliver of displeasure. Yiqing Luo lowered her head as she looked at herself. "What's the matter? How would Xian know that she and Zhu Wuxian had just met?" Dmo Xian didn't answer her question as he stretched out his hand and pulled her into his embrace. His chin was pressed against her head. The man's mellow voice floated down. "I really need to tie you to my side." "Yiqing Luo? Wait a minute, what on earth had happened? What did she do?" Dmo Xian had no intention to answer this question. Yiqing Luo could roughly guess. Just now, Zhu Wuxin must have done something to her body, or purposely stained her body with his scent. Which was why Dmo Xian's expression suddenly changed. Yiqing Luo allowed Dmo Xian to disperse the remaining Zhu Wuxian's scent on her body like a childish boy. She then opened her mouth. "Sir, are you satisfied? If you're not satisfied, what are you going to do?" Dmo Xian lowered his eyes as his deep gaze congealed on her. Yiqing Luo's long eyelashes fluttered as she blinked. Following that, she gave a sweet and innocent smile. "If you're not satisfied, there's nothing I can do. The core values of socialism don't allow it, so you can only make do and be satisfied." Dmo Xian. What fucking make do and be satisfied? Alright. He made do. I was outside Qingji's room when I saw those forces behind her. Yiqing Luo told Dmo Xian everything she heard at Qingji's place. After that, she pushed Dmo Xian's arm away and walked straight to another neat desk. She spread out a piece of paper in front of her and picked up a pen beside it. Following the shape in her mind, she copied the totem she saw on the clothes of the secret guards and the Grand Shaman, stroke by stroke. After about the time it takes for half an incense stick to burn, Yiqing Luo put down her pen. "Look, have you seen this force before?" The totem which Yiqing Luo had drawn was exactly the same as the totem which Yiqing Luo had seen. Dmo Xian scrutinized it for a moment and frowned slightly. "No. This totem was very unfamiliar. Ask the Imperial Palace's side to investigate secretly. If they're able to find out that powerhouse, there's a possibility that we can make use of it." Yiqing Luo narrowed her eyes slightly. The goal of the Palace of Darkness. It was for the tomb of the Divine Emperor. The reason why Qinggu was in the gloomy palace. It was also for the tomb of the Divine Emperor. In the end, the two forces would stand on opposite sides. If he could make good use of it, there might be a chance to get rid of these two forces. "That's right," Xian Zhu Wuxian said. "He knows the powerhouse behind Qinggu. What kind of powerhouse is it?" Yiqing Luo suddenly recalled what Zhu Wuxian said earlier. Dmo Xian's fingertips moved as he locked her chin. "What he knows is his own matter, you're not allowed to ask him." I just know that a big vinegar jar like you would get jealous. Yiqing Luo pushed his hand away, so I directly rejected him. Chapter 4932. Diamo Xian's thin lips curled into a smile as he rubbed her head. Be good. Yiqing Luo. Be good your head. You're such a bad vinegar jar. But to ridicule. Yiqing Luo didn't say it out. She adjusted her tone and said, even you haven't seen this powerhouse's totem, but Zhu Wuxian would know. There's a possibility that he might be related to that powerhouse. Zhu Wuxian, this person. In her past memories, she only remembered that Zhu Wuxian's identity was very mysterious. Later on in Death God Castle, when she met Zhu Wuxian, she only thought that Zhu Wuxian was just Death God Castle's castle lord. But later on she discovered Zhu Wuxian was not only Death God Castle's castle lord. And the so-called Death God Castle was not as simple as what it looked on the surface. Otherwise, the ghost robbers would not have been imprisoned in Death God Castle for so many years. Later on when they arrived at the upper realm, Zhu Wuxian transformed into the Red Clear Pavilion's Pavilion Lord. The Red Clear Pavilion that was famous in the upper realm and even in the God realm. And he was able to collaborate with the people behind the Nether Palace. And casually cut off the collaboration. And he wasn't afraid of the people behind the Nether Palace taking revenge. Zhu Wuxian's identity thinking in this way wasn't that simple. Yiqing Luo's eyes deepened. Don't think about him. Diamo Xian cupped her face as his tone became heavier, as though he was unhappy. I will investigate, there's no need to ask him. Yes, I will, my lord husband. A vinegar jar was indeed a vinegar jar. This totem? Suddenly Yiqing Luo felt a scorching sensation on her wrist. Following that, she saw a light figure floating out. That figure was faintly discernible in the darkness. It was in a translucent state. Old man Song, what's the matter? Yiqing Luo immediately looked at that floating figure. You've seen this totem before? Old man Song walked several rounds around the totem which Yiqing Luo had drawn on the study table. I seem to have seen it somewhere. Old man Song recalled with difficulty, but it's been too long, I really can't recall where I've seen it before. Vaguely he felt that this totem looked familiar. However, if he thought about it carefully he would be stuck. Yes. Before you became the guardian spirit of the Azure Dew bracelet, did you see it? Yiqing Luo probed. After old man Song became the guardian spirit of the Azure Dew bracelet, he had slumbered for over 10,000 years. If he had seen it before, this also meant that the history of this force was comparable to the Feng family. That was a force even more ancient than the so-called Palace of Darkness. Old man Song nodded his head without hesitation. Yes, I only have a vague impression of it, but I'm not too sure if this totem is the same as the one in my memory. Now, I can only wait for the Imperial Palace to investigate and see if there is any news. With the clue provided by Old Man Song, a lot of time was saved. Old Man Song wanted to say something. He suddenly looked out the door. The smoke-like figure immediately followed Yiqing Luo's wrist and drilled into the Azure Dew bracelet. Someone? Yiqing Luo's gaze swept towards the room door. His gaze fell on the table again, on the paper with the totem drawn on it. If this totem was discovered by Clear Pigeon, that would be alerting the enemy. Yiqing Luo's eyes sunk, her slender white hand immediately grabbed that piece of paper. At the same time, the study room's door was suddenly opened by someone. A white robe fluttered, incomparably frail woman, supported by a maid, stood at the door. Seventh Miss Who Likes Trash. Overlord, please be gentler with your love, everyone please collect. Seventh Miss Who Likes Trash. Overlord, please be gentler with your love, hit me. Chapter 4933. Qingji's face was as pale as a piece of paper, with beads of cold sweat on her forehead. The maid beside her was the lady named Huan Luo. Overlord. Qingji's weak voice was soft and powerless. That look coupled with that voice. It was a pitiful painting of a beauty. After all, Qinggu had always been elegant and dignified. Suddenly becoming so weak, it made one feel sorry for her. The contrast was enough to stir one's heart. But Qingji's belly full of words were stuck in her throat. Wanwan's frail face froze in that instant. The scene in the study room. All her plans had been disrupted. Inside the study room, the young lady in a fiery red dress had one arm around the man's neck. The other hand was placed on Diamo Xian's chest. Their posture was intimate. At this moment, both of them simultaneously turned their gazes toward the door. Tacit understanding. Warmth. Qingji's body was on the verge of collapse. The sharp pain in her body that felt like it was being pierced by needles was even more unbearable. And Yi Qing Luo heaved a sigh of relief when she lowered her eyes. Just at the moment when the door was pushed open. She had coincidentally stuffed that piece of paper with the totem into Dmo Shen's arms. Scared the hell out of her. She was almost discovered by Qinggu. Luckily she was quick-witted and had quick reflexes. But she just wanted to hide that piece of paper. It seemed that Qinggu had misunderstood. Yi Qing Luo tilted her head, her eyes were filled with a faint smile. Miss Qinggu, what's the matter? Qingji's gaze was stuck on Dmo Shen. Suddenly she heard Yi Qing Luo's voice. Her gaze tightened as her sharp gaze stared fiercely at Yi Qing Luo. Feng Qing Luo. Yi Qing Luo blinked her eyes and pretended to be scared as she buried her head into Dmo Shen's arms. Why did you suddenly shout at me? Don't you know the reason why I am here? Qingji's voice was slightly sharp. Her jade fingers clasped Huan Luo's arm tightly as she gritted her teeth. She hated it the most. It was Feng Qing Luo who deliberately pretended to be innocent and pure. Pretentious. Simply disgusting. Feng Qing Luo, that slut, used this kind of pretentious look to deceive the overlord. Yi Qing Luo stuck her head out and dragged out the last syllable before blinking her eyes innocently. I don't know, so why did Miss Qinggu come looking for me? Qinggu gasped and glared at Yi Qing Luo. Hand over the antidote. Yi Qing Luo tilted her head, her long and narrow eyes raised slightly. What antidote? What are you talking about? Don't play dumb. Qinggu was so infuriated that she almost died on the spot. She turned to look at Dmo Shen. Overlord, I didn't hesitate to betray his lordship to work for you. Don't tell me you're going to allow Miss Feng to treat me like this? At the end of her sentence, her voice trembled. It was as if he had suffered a great grievance. Dmo Shen had yet to speak. Yi Qing Luo moved and stood in front of Dmo Shen, raising her brows at Qinggu. What did I do to you? You poisoned me. Qinggu spat out word by word through gritted teeth. After she finished her words, her entire body trembled slightly, as if the pain was spreading throughout her body. Huan Luo's arm was scratched till there were red marks. She looked at Yi Qing Luo with heartache. Miss Feng, quickly hand over the antidote. Ever since you came here, my miss has never treated you unfairly. Don't you have a conscience for treating her like this? Yi Qing Luo? Oh no. But her mouth was very direct, denying thrice. I'm not, don't talk nonsense. Seventh Miss who likes trash. Overlord, please be gentler with your love. Seventh Miss who likes trash. Overlord, please be gentler with your love. Chapter 49-34. She put on a serious look. You said I poisoned you, show me the evidence. Anyway, there was no evidence. On what basis did she say that she was the one who poisoned her? Qinggu had not expected Yi Qing Luo to deny everything. She was so angry that she almost died on the spot as she gritted her teeth and stared at Yi Qing Luo. Feng Qing Luo, how could you be so shameless? Yi Qing Luo's face sunk slightly as her half-squinted eyes congealed a cold arc. Miss Qinggu, if you don't have any evidence, don't spout nonsense. Her pink lips curled slightly as the chill in her eyes deepened. What evidence do you have to prove that I have poisoned you? If you can't show me the evidence, can I assume that Miss Qinggu is trying to attract my man's attention and intentionally slandered me? Not only did she refute in a serious manner, she even put on a high hat on Qingji's head. Qingji's face contorted slightly as she looked at Yi Qing Luo's serious face of denying and intentionally making her hate. Her eyes turned red. A slut is a slut. She actually played this trick. In front of the overlord. All kinds of innocent and pure. But when facing her alone, she knew how to stretch out her sharp claws. This slut relied on this kind of pretentious method to cheat the overlord's trust. Miss Feng. Huan Luo had not expected this eldest miss of the Feng family to be so difficult to deal with. She looked at the princess who was trembling in pain and pursed her lips tightly. What you want, is Miss taking the initiative to ask you for the antidote? Now that Miss is here, what else do you want to do? Miss Feng, for the sake of the overlord, if you hand over the antidote now, this matter, we will let it go. Huan Luo's tone was neither servile nor overbearing. Not much emotion could be heard from it. But every word and sentence was filled with an overbearing boldness. Yi Qing Luo covered her mouth as she laughed softly. Her melodious laughter was as melodious as a silver bell. You guys are really funny. How do you put it? It seems like I'm the one who forced Miss Qinggu to look for me? What's in it for me if she comes looking for me? Huan Luo took a look at Dmo Shen and saw that from the start till the end, the man had not revealed any trace of emotion. She gritted her teeth and said, because you deliberately wanted my young miss to lower her head to you, please? I can satisfy your vanity in front of His Majesty. When Yi Qing Luo heard that, she giggled, then as she lowered her head. Are you begging me? Huan Luo was speechless. Lower my head? How could he lower his head? Qinggu was a high and mighty princess. How could he lower his head to a slut? Not to mention, begging her. Yi Qing Luo seemed to have seen through Huan Luo's thoughts from her expression. She tilted her head and smiled sweetly like a flower. So, now you admit that you're slandering me? Huan Luo still wanted to say something. Chapter 49-35. The young lady's fingers moved slightly and pressed against her pink lips as she blinked her eyes exaggeratedly. You finally admit it? Qing Ji's eyes widened as she stared at Yi Qing Luo. You admit that you did it on purpose. Yi Qing Luo tilted her head as her silky black hair slid down her porcelain-like delicate little face, making her look even more mischievous and adorable. What can you do even if I admit it? Her fingertips caressed her chin as she smiled innocently. So, you want to lower your head to me and beg me to give you the antidote? That obvious mocking tone sounded as if she was teasing a pet. Qing Ji's face, which was already pale from the pain, became even paler. She widened her eyes as anger surged in her eyes. Don't even think about it. Yi Qing Luo shrugged nonchalantly. Then you can turn around and leave now. This is my place. Qinggu was so angry that her face started to turn red again. The redness on her pale face gave her a strange feeling. Qinggu felt a fishy sweetness in her throat as if something was about to gush out. She forcefully suppressed it and turned her gaze to Diamo Xian. Overlord, you heard it? Miss Feng admitted that she was the one who poisoned me. Now, she should be able to see the true face of this seemingly harmless slut. Overlord, I am wholeheartedly only for you. Qinggu continued, I tried my best to help you to achieve your wish. But she treated me like this. Diamo Xian's deep inky eyes glanced at Qinggu indifferently. His emotions were indifferent and she couldn't tell what he was thinking. But the man's large palm was still wrapped around the young lady's waist, which gave Qinggu a bad premonition. It doesn't matter whether she is the one who poisoned me or not. The man's mellow voice was deep and husky. What's important is what she wants. The man's beautiful lips curled into an ambiguous arc. If she wants to kill someone, I will hand over the knife. Qing Ji's pupils suddenly contracted. Leaning on Huan Luo, she couldn't help but stagger a few times. The meaning of the overlord's words was obvious. Whether this poison was from Feng Qing Luo or not, he would always stand on Feng Qing Luo's side. Overlord. Qing Ji's voice was a little hoarse as if she was about to cry. How could you do this, heartless? Yes, this man, other than Feng Qing Luo. It was so heartless that it was as if he had no feelings at all. No matter what she said, no matter how pitiful she was. He didn't even flinch. If she wants to kill someone, I'll give her the knife. She killed someone and he gave her a knife. Ha! The high and mighty Di Zun, who was like a god, he was cold to others and had an unapproachable temperament. Actually, he was not cold at all. However, all the gentleness was given to Feng Qing Luo alone. There seemed to be a whirlpool in Qing Ji's eyes, churning continuously. Her thoughts were buried under the boundless whirlpool. Sooner or later she would take Di Zun's gentleness. Sooner or later she would get the overlord and let Feng Qing Luo see with her own eyes how the overlord would give all his gentleness to her. A flame of excitement flashed across Qing Dove's eyes. She clasped Huan Luo's arm tightly, gritted her teeth and spat out a word with difficulty. Go! To make her lower her head to Feng Qing Luo. Absolutely impossible. Especially after being teased by Feng Qing Luo. TSK. You really have a backbone. Yi Qing Luo clicked her tongue and praised insincerely. Chapter 49-36. The pigeon paused for a moment. It looked like he stumbled. Yi Qing Luo's brows rose slightly as she smiled and snuggled into Diamo Xian's arms, as she pretended to speak indifferently. Backbone, or life, which one is more important? Xian, what do you think? The man slightly lowered his eyes as deep as the sea, reflecting the young girl's sweet smile. His eyes darkened. His beautiful lips were thin and his voice was elegant and mellow. You are more important. Sudden words of love. It made Yi Qing Luo's maiden heart restless. Her little hand clutched onto his lapel as she raised her head to glare at Diamo Xian coquettishly. I'm being serious here. What I said was very serious. Diamo Xian's eyes were smiling. Critical strike. My health bar is empty. Her Xian was becoming more and more flirtatious. Don't you know that this is a critical period? Remember the core values of socialism. How could he say such sweet nothings to her? Be careful not to be locked in a small black room. Yiqing Luo clutched her thumping heart as she couldn't hold it in any longer. Right then, Qinggu, who had yet to leave, heard the man's gentle and doting voice, saying words of love that she had never heard before. His body felt like it was being pricked by needles. The stab became even more painful. She clutched her clothes tightly. His qi and blood surged. In the next instant his vision turned black. Then he lost consciousness. Miss, young miss, Huan Luo shouted in panic. The forbidden area of the Palace of Darkness was always quiet. Huan Luo's voice could be heard. This attracted the attention of the disciples of the Palace of Darkness. Very quickly, they rushed over in an orderly manner. Miss Huan Luo, what happened? The leader of the secluded Darkness Palace disciples shouted from outside the forbidden area. Huan Luo took a look at Diamo Xian and Yiqing Luo, and looked at the unconscious Qinggu in her arms. She bit her lips and carried Qinggu out of the study room in quick steps. Yiqing Luo and Diamo Xian exchanged glances. The girl's pink lips curled up slightly. Looks like we can't stay here anymore. It's all right. Diamo Xian wrapped his arm around her slender waist. I've already found what I wanted to find. Yiqing Luo raised her eyes. Since you found it, why are you still staying here for? Because you're naughty. The man's voice was light, but it was full of affection. Yiqing Luo. All right, she couldn't refute. It turned out that he was interested in the power behind Qinggu because of her. So he stayed and let her satisfy her curiosity before seeing if she wanted to leave the base of the Palace of Darkness. Yiqing Luo's arms circled around his neck. Then shall we leave now? If you don't want to leave, you can stay. He had a way to let her stay in this base safe and sound. Yiqing Luo tilted her head and looked past the door of the study, at the door of Qingji's room not too far away. If I were to leave, there's a possibility that she might die from the clear pigeon poison outbreak. Would the power behind her let her off so easily? It felt like there would be a lot of trouble in the future. It's all right. Diamo Xian bowed slightly, his thin lips spitting out words. I can protect you. Don't worry about anything. As long as you wish for it, I will definitely protect you. Yiqing Luo. Critical hit. Blood gauge, 99999. Outside the courtyard, those orderly footsteps had already entered the forbidden grounds. Apparently they had received Huan Luo's orders. Huan Luo was planning to expose their whereabouts. Yiqing Luo passed her body weight over to Diamo Xian. Before we leave, I still want to go to a place. Seventh young miss who likes trash. Overlord, please be gentler with your love. Seventh young miss who likes trash. Overlord, please be gentler with your love. Chapter 4937. The decorations were exquisite and dazzling, with numerous toys and food, just like a children's paradise in the room. The little one was staring blankly at the candied haws in her hands. That delicate and adorable little face did not have the innocence and joy of a child, but was filled with melancholy. Her delicate brows were tightly knitted into a bundle. After staring at the candied haws for a long time, the little one suddenly threw the candied haws onto the ground. A liar who deceived this princess, just a scoundrel. This princess needs to worry about him. After roaring this sentence, the little one stepped hard on the candied haws again. This princess will not forgive a liar who deceives me. But after a few steps, the little one seemed to have lost all her strength, as she stopped her stomping action and sat on the ground weakly. Her bright and beautiful big eyes stared at the candied haws which had been stepped on. Suddenly she started to cry. This cry had just started. She heard a clear and melodious voice ringing in the room. How much does Princess Ling Long miss Sisi, so much that you're crying? The little one's cries stopped abruptly as her beautiful eyes widened and looked around vigilantly. Who's there? Inside the room, two figures appeared silently. A fiery lady, dressed in a fluttering red robe. A black-haired man in black robe was like a god. Ling Long's exquisite little face turned slightly pale as she stood up abruptly and took a step back. Who are you? What are you trying to do by barging into this princess's room? Her face was filled with vigilance. How did you find out about this princess's room? Are you trying to kidnap this princess as a hostage? Yiqing Luo. This little one knew quite a lot. Her pink lips parted as she released Diamo Xian's waist and walked slowly towards the little one. Then Princess Ling Long. Do you want to be my hostage? Ling Long's little face turned pale again. Then she turned around and wanted to run. But the little one who had stepped on the candied haws earlier. He turned his head and ran. Bam! Her feet stuck to the ground and she fell onto the ground. The elegant and classy Princess Linglong fell flat on her face. The scene was a little awkward. The little man's face was red as he struggled to get up from the ground. However, the stickiness under her feet made it impossible for her to stand firmly. He cut a sorry figure. Linglong struggled and her eyes immediately turned red. He simply sat on the ground and refused to move. At this moment, a slender and fair little hand stretched out in front of her. Linglong was startled. She looked up and saw a coquettish face. At this moment, the face was looking at her with a gentle and harmless smile. For some strange reason, Linglong extended her hand into that fair hand. The warm touch caused the little girl's heart to tremble for a moment, until he was pulled up by someone. Linglong was still in a daze. "Princess Linglong, can I ask you a question?" Luo didn't let go of her hand, but slowly squatted down and looked at the little girl at the same level. Linglong was still a little confused. What? You should have heard that there's news from the Forbidden Land. Luo's pink lips curled upwards as her brows were picturesque. "If Fengxi is really caught, how do you want to deal with her?" The young lady's voice was very gentle. Like a clear spring, it flowed past Linglong's heart, soothing the restlessness in her heart. "How to deal with Fengxi?" Linglong's eyelids drooped down slightly as her voice sounded a little tense. "He lied to me and made use of me. If he is caught, I want him to taste the most severe punishment from my secluded palace." Chapter 49:38. The little girl's every word seemed to be squeezed out from the gaps of her teeth. But in the end, all her imposing manner was extinguished at this moment. She drooped her head as her eyes turned red and her crisp childish voice sounded choked. "I originally thought so, but..." She waved Luo's hand away as she hugged her head with both hands. "But I don't want him to be caught." Linglong ultimately couldn't resist the true desire in her heart. She should have hated Fengxi. But the moment she thought of Fengxi's smiling face and the way Fengxi called her Linglong, she couldn't raise any bit of hatred. That was her first friend. The first one, whom she sincerely wanted to befriend. Even if he lied to her, she didn't want anything to happen to him. Linglong's reply made Luo's smile deepened. Indeed, it was right for her to make this trip. She didn't misjudge Linglong. Luo took out a handkerchief and gently wiped away the tears on Linglong's face as she spoke in a gentle voice. "Actually, when Fengxi left here, she left something for you." Linglong blinked her eyes. "What is it?" Luo stuffed the handkerchief into her palm and pointed to her bed. Linglong was slightly stunned as joy flashed past her eyes, but there was some uncertainty and hesitation. Luo smiled and nodded at her. Linglong remained silent for a moment as she clenched the handkerchief in her hand tightly and walked towards the direction of the bed step by step. Under the pillow she took out a piece of letter. Linglong took a look at Luo as she opened the letter bit by bit. She read every word on the letter word by word. Luo didn't rush her. After about the time it took for half a stick of incense to burn. Linglong then folded the letter neatly and raised her head to look at Luo. "You are Xiaoqi." It wasn't a question but an affirmation. Luo had no intention to hide. "Did you see through it or was it said in the letter?" "Earlier, when you stretched out your hand to me, I vaguely guessed it." Linglong pursed her lips. "So, you pretended to be Xiaoqi to bring Cici away?" "Yes." Luo admitted straightforwardly. "Secluded Palace's motive for capturing Cici isn't simple. It's too dangerous for Cici to stay here." "I understand." Linglong looked at the letter in her hand. "Knowing that he isn't lying to me or using me is enough." Luo smiled. "I think Cici also doesn't want you to misunderstand her, so I made this trip." She paused for a moment before continuing. "Cici is very safe now. You don't have to worry." "Cici, he has already left this place, right?" Linglong's distinct black and white beautiful eyes looked at Luo without blinking, as though she had made some sort of decision. Luo nodded her head. Linglong clenched her tiny fists tightly. Then he stuffed the letter into his pocket. He raised his hands and stretched it out in front of Luo. "Xiaoqi, catch me." Luo? What kind of operation was this? "I'll be your hostage, bring me out of this dark place." Linglong stuffed her hands into Luo's hands. "Bring me to look for Cici." "Hostage? Your Highness, are you serious? Wasn't this train of thought a little too fast? I'm the most pampered princess of secluded palace. As long as I'm in your hands, they absolutely won't dare to touch me. You can use me as a hostage and leave this place." Chapter 49-39. Little Princess started to analyze the reason for Yiqing Luo. Yiqing Luo? This child was rather smart. She actually volunteered to be a hostage. But she didn't need a hostage to leave this place? But looking at Linglong's determined eyes, she looked as though she was volunteering to be a hostage. Yiqing Luo really couldn't bear to reject her. She turned her head and looked at Dmo Xian. The black-haired man's thin lips curled slightly as his gaze was filled with love. As though he was saying, "You decide. Then, take the hostage away." Linglong volunteered. Moreover, Feng-Shi should also want to see Linglong. A child's friendship was very pure. It wouldn't be mixed with too many interests and complicated relationships. Yiqing Luo didn't wish for Feng-Shi to lose a friend like this. She indeed had some selfish motives. Over at the secluded palace, they respected and protected Linglong. It was enough to prove that the mastermind behind the secluded palace valued Linglong. If Linglong was in her hands, at least she would have some advantage. If the mastermind behind the secluded palace wanted to snatch Linglong back, they would definitely give themselves away. The two of them brought along a child as they silently headed towards the exit. The secluded palace's base exit was only the Jiang family's aristocrats' dungeon. It was heavily guarded by the secluded palace's disciples. Dmo Xian could come and go as he pleased. Yiqing Luo was still considering if she could use the blink movement secret art to leave silently. Then, her arm was grabbed by someone and her wrist was placed across a fair and slender neck. Linglong shouted, "I'm a hostage. None of you are allowed to move." Yiqing Luo? This last, was she really not a spy sent by the enemy? Linglong's roar. Instantly the secluded palace's disciples who were guarding the entrance stared over in alarm. Yiqing Luo? She could only hold Linglong as she walked out from the dark. Linglong was still trying her best to display her acting. "None of you are allowed to move. Once you move, she will kill me. If I die, all of you will be buried with me. I am Father's most beloved princess. If anything happens to me, all of you will die." Yiqing Luo didn't know how to ridicule. Most importantly, the Nether Palace disciples actually believed it. Secluded Palace's disciples were all filled with vigilance and worry as they stared at Yiqing Luo in panic. "Miss Feng, quickly let go of our princess." How much did his lord value Princess Linglong? They knew better than anyone else. Usually, if Princess Linglong were to knock herself against the wall, she would be punished with the lives of a large group of servants. If they allowed Princess Linglong to become a hostage and even get injured, just the thought of the consequences sent shivers down his spine. The secluded Darkness Palace disciples were so frightened that they didn't dare to move. Yiqing Luo? This was probably the common saying, being overly concerned would cause confusion. She didn't have any room to play. The man in her arms tugged at her sleeves and whispered, "Let's go now." Yiqing Luo locked Linglong's neck as she slowly walked out of the underground prison's entrance. Mr. and Mrs. Jiang also arrived with hundreds of secret guards. It was a pincer attack. But because Linglong was held hostage in Yiqing Luo's hands, from time to time he would even shout and scream. Yiqing Luo had a smooth journey as she brought Linglong and left the Jiang family's aristocratic residence. In the dark, Yiqing Luo put Linglong down. The secluded palace's disciples and Jiang aristocrats' secret guards were searching everywhere. Linglong delightfully curled her cherry lips. "I'm still the smarter one." Chapter 49-40. Yiqing Luo leaned against the wall and sighed softly, "You're smart, but have you ever thought about my identity as Feng family's Missy? Will they let us off?" Linglong's complacent smile froze bit by bit. She lowered her head. Did I get into trouble?" "Yes, so. Remember this lesson." Yiqing Luo patted her head. "In future when you think of problems, you need to think more comprehensively and consider all the consequences." Linglong's head lowered even more guiltily. "If you know guilt, then remember what I said." Yiqing Luo pulled her wrist. "Things have already developed to such a stage, you can only be a hostage and follow me back to Feng family." Linglong nodded. After a while, Dmo Xian came looking for them. The three of them headed towards the Feng residence. They just reached the Feng residence. As expected, they saw the secluded palace's disciples and the Jiang family's secret guards guarding outside. But they were just loitering outside and had no intention to barge in. Yiqing Luo squinted her eyes slightly as she vaguely noticed that a wisp of profound glow was faintly discernible in the sky above the Feng residence. "Is it an enchantment?" Yiqing Luo asked. Dmo Xian nodded. It should be an enchantment conjured by maternal grandfather. Maternal grandfather? This man, he changed his words really smoothly. The three of them avoided the secluded palace's disciples and approached the Feng residence from the side door. Yiqing Luo was still thinking of ways to send a message out for her maternal grandfather to fetch her. Diamo Xian held her little hand and pressed it on the barrier of the enchantment. The moment her fingers touched it, the profound glow shot out. The three of them entered the Feng residence. Feng family's bloodline can enter, Diamo Xian explained. When Yiqing Luo and the rest entered, Feng family's patriarch who had set up the enchantment naturally sensed it. When Yiqing Luo pulled Ling Long to the main hall, Feng family's patriarch had already welcomed them. Little Luo, are you all right? The old man's eyes were red as his trembling hand stretched out towards Yiqing Luo. Yiqing Luo hugged her maternal grandfather and said softly, I'm all right, look at me, haven't I come back safe and sound? The old man pulled Yiqing Luo and sized her up for a while until he was sure that Yiqing Luo indeed had no injuries on her before he was assured. It was at this moment that he noticed Diamo Xian, who was standing not too far away. Xiaoxian is here too. Come here, come here. The old man's eyes lit up as he beckoned to Diamo Xian. Yiqing Luo? What kind of name was that? But when he saw Diamo Xian obediently walking to his side, allowing Patriarch Feng to pat his shoulder, listening to the old man's brainwashing greeting, Little Xian is little Xian, grandfather handing little Luo over to you was indeed the right choice. Fortunately you were there so she was safe. Thank you grandfather for your trust. I've said it before. I will protect Lil Luo well. Diamo Xian gave a courteous smile. Good boy, grandfather has always believed in you. Feng family master patted his shoulder again, and his eyes were full of joy. Yiqing Luo, she had no idea what had happened between Grandpa and Xian while she was away. But Grandpa liked Xian so much. She didn't have to worry about how to make her family accept Xian's existence. This is. After Master Feng was excited for a while, he saw the beautiful little girl standing aside and looking around curiously. Yiqing Luo was about to answer. But she heard a crisp little voice coming from not too far away. Ling Long? Seventh Miss who likes trash. Overlord, please be gentler with your love. Seventh Miss who likes trash. Overlord, please be gentler with your love. Chapter 49-41. A small figure ran towards Ling Long speedily. Ling Long, it's really you. Feng, she grabbed Ling Long's hand with a face full of surprise. Ling Long's face was also filled with joy when he saw Feng Shi. But the next moment she straightened her face and shook off Feng Shi's hand, staring at him fiercely. Now you know to call me? Why didn't you tell me when you were leaving? Feng Shi's little head drooped. Because you weren't there at that time. You left without a word. Have you ever thought about my feelings? Ling Long bit his lower lip and continued to be fierce. Feng Shi stretched out her little hand to grab Ling Long's hand and said in a weak voice, I left you a message, Ling Long, what if I didn't see it? Feng Shi's little face turned pale as she looked at Ling Long with red eyes. Ling Long, I really didn't mean to at that time. I had no choice. He hurriedly explained, Sister took a huge risk to sneak in there to save me, I can't drag her down. The fierce look on Ling Long's face faded slowly. She grabbed Feng Shi's hand hard. Next time, do you dare to leave me like this? Feng Shi was stunned and shook her head quickly. No. The two little ones looked at each other and smiled. Children's friendship was extremely pure. It wouldn't be mixed with any interest disputes. Although, their positions might not be the same. But, such a pure friendship, perhaps it could change a lot of things. It was rare for Feng family's master to see his grandson like this. He looked like a real child. He stared at Ling Long with some doubts. Yiqing Luo held Feng family patriarch's arm and said with a smile, Children should play with other children, let's not disturb them. She held Feng family patriarch's arm and looked at Granny Feng. Granny Feng, keep an eye on them with the secret guards. When they entered the hall, Yiqing Luo then explained Ling Long's identity. Feng family patriarch's expression changed abruptly. What? The Princess of Abyss Palace? Why did you bring her here? Accompany Cici and be a hostage at the same time. Yiqing Luo paused for a moment and narrated the matter of secluded Darkness Palace and Jiang family's aristocrats colluding with each other, and now they were all gathered outside the Phoenix residence, ready to make trouble in a concise and comprehensive manner. A few pieces of news came down one after another. Patriarch Feng was a little confused. When Diamo Xian sent Feng Shi back, Therefore he only told him to set up a barrier to prevent anyone from kidnapping Feng Shi again. But he didn't expect things to develop to this point. Yi Qing Luo supported Feng family's patriarch to sit down as she spoke with a solemn expression. Today's actions should have alerted the enemy. I'm afraid that secluded palaces side will take action soon. With how careful and cunning the Abyss Palace was, once the Abyss Palace took action, the Abyss Palace would definitely be destroyed. The entire God world would definitely suffer a huge blow. It's best to inform little uncle's side to be prepared. Yi Qing Luo continued. The heavens of the God world were about to change. Everything was as Yi Qing Luo had predicted. The various aristocrats in the God realm had started to show signs of being divided. Towards the Feng family who had been in charge of the God realm for a long time, the various aristocrats had long accumulated a lot of resentment. If the Feng family's acting God Emperor was recognized by the Divine Phoenix and obtained the Divine Phoenix's inheritance, everyone could still accept it. 7th Miss Who Likes Trash. Overlord, please be gentler with your love. 7th Miss Who Likes Trash. Overlord, please be gentler with your love. Chapter 49-42. But unfortunately, Feng Liqiong did not obtain the inheritance of the Divine Phoenix. It was only because of the former Divine Emperor that he had the acting position today, who didn't want to be above others, who didn't want to control the entire God realm. When this dissatisfaction and the desire for power, there was a little push. The aristocrats of the various aristocratic families, their hearts began to burn with the fire of desire. The surface of the God realm was calm. In fact, it had begun to develop in an unpredictable direction. It was very obvious to Feng Liqiong that the nobility clan's attitudes toward him had changed. Feng Liqiong received the summons from the Feng family's patriarch and returned to the Feng residence angrily. She heard about the Palace of Darkness again. She was so angry that she almost died on the spot. All of you want my position. Why don't you think about who has been handling the mess in the God realm for so many years? When something happens, all of you hide faster than anyone else. Now you're full of ambition. It's no use throwing a tantrum now. Yi Qing Luo leaned back on the chair lazily. Feng Liqiong glared at her. Isn't it all because of you? Logically speaking, the Palace of Darkness's target has always been the position under your ass. Even if it's not now, they will do it later. Yi Qing Luo shrugged her shoulders, and, by then I'm afraid you will unknowingly become cannon fodder. Speaking of which, you have to thank me. Yi Qing Luo's pink lips curled up frivolously as her long and narrow eyes twinkled with playfulness. Let me give you a suggestion. Yi Qing Luo chuckled as she enunciated each word clearly. Now, while the Palace of Darkness is just starting, secretly remember those aristocrats whose attitude has changed. And then, secretly mess with them. Perhaps you can sit in this position for a little longer. Feng Liqiong's face darkened. Don't try to talk nonsense with me. I'll dig out that damn dark nether palace right now. If you can dig it out, your position will not be so unstable now. Yi Qing Luo raised her eyebrows and slowly straightened her body. Little uncle, you'd better think of a way to win people's hearts and secure your position. Feng Liqiong was burning with anger. Hearing Yi Qing Luo's words, her eyes were filled with anger. Yi Qing Luo's words were obviously questioning his ability. They questioned whether he had the ability to sit firmly on the position of the acting God Emperor. His vision suddenly turned towards Yi Qing Luo's side, to that outstanding man, Dmo Xian. The Imperial Palace's venerable sovereign, right? Feng Liqiong had heard of this name before. The name of Venerable Emperor. In the lower realm, it was a symbol of nobility and mystery. There were also rumors about him in the God world. It was said that the master of the Imperial Palace, Di Zun, was also from the Divine World. Chapter 49-43. Feng Liqiong knew about the relationship between Dmo Xian and Yi Qing Luo. It was just that when Dmo Xian went to the Feng family to interact with Old Master Feng, he didn't come back, but from the secret guard of the Feng residence. Old Master Feng couldn't be more satisfied with this grandson-in-law, but he just couldn't stand Dmo Xian. What kind of dog was he, standing out and saying that he wanted to marry little Luo? Did he think that it was so easy to marry a lady from the Feng residence? So what if he was powerful and had a distinguished status? He couldn't even settle a wild chicken like Nether Palace. He was just a waste. This dog Nether Palace, I'll leave it to you. If you can't settle it, don't even think of marrying our little Luo. Feng Liqiong sneered. What nonsense are you talking about? Feng Liqiong threw the teacup over. Don't you want a junior to help you settle your own matter? Don't you have any shame? I'm just testing his abilities, Feng Liqiong said with a straight face. Yiqing Luo almost believed what he said. Get lost. Feng Clan's master glared at his son angrily. Don't think about little Luo and little Xian. I have specially investigated the forces of the Palace of Darkness. To be able to avoid the heavenly way and commit atrocities in the lower realms, almost annihilating the lower realms, and now to be able to quietly take root in the God realm, and quietly instigate so many aristocrats. That's enough to prove that this force is not to be underestimated. Since the other party's aim is the position of God Emperor, you, as the acting God Emperor, should be a good example and settle this matter quickly. Otherwise, give up the position under your butt. Feng Liqiong's words made Feng Liqiong's face turn black bit by bit. By the time the last sentence was said, Feng Liqiong was like a cat whose tail had been stepped on, instantly exploded. Give up? You want me to give up the position? Since you can't settle a force that popped out of nowhere, why not directly give up the position? Feng Liqiong didn't feel that there was anything wrong with his words. Give up the position to who? Feng Qingluo? Feng Liqiong was so angry that she laughed. His tone was filled with ridicule as he squinted at Yiqing Luo. Unexpectedly, Feng Clan Master nodded very seriously. Yes, this position should belong to little Luo. The expression on Feng Liqiong's face gradually stiffened. All of a sudden, Feng Liqiong slammed the table and stood up. Did you make up your mind a long time ago? Do you still think I'm not qualified to be the emperor? Feng Liqiong's anger was unquenchable, reverberating in the hall. The air was tense. There was a moment of silence. Only then did the Feng family patriarch slowly stand up. His entire person seemed to have aged several decades and his tone was gloomy. It's not that I don't think you're up to the task, but the inheritance of the divine phoenix does not acknowledge you. All the generations of divine emperors in the God realm have been succeeded by the successor of the divine phoenix. I admit that you've done very well as the acting divine emperor all these years, even better than Feng Gu. But, if you can't obtain the inheritance of the divine phoenix, how can you convince the masses? Feng Liqiong's tense mood, in the words of Feng Clan head, loosened little by little. The anger on her face had also dissipated. Feng Liqiong took a deep breath and looked at Yiqing Luo. Now the only way is to obtain the inheritance of the divine phoenix, and suppress those who have ulterior motives. Feng Liqiong's hands, which were pressed on the table, curled up into fists. On what basis are you so sure that she can obtain the inheritance of the divine phoenix? Chapter 49-44. Based on the fact that she is Xiao Ji's daughter. Feng Clan Master said each word with great strength. Feng Liqiong slammed her fist on the table again. The sandalwood table broke into pieces and fell to the ground. Feng Liqiong's position was very close to Yiqing Luo. The table shattered and splinters of wood flew everywhere. In the instant that Feng Liqiong swung her fist, Diamo Xian had already stood up and pulled the young lady into his arms. Turning his back, he protected the young lady tightly in his arms. The sawdust hit Diamo Xian's back. Feng Clan Master's complexion changed. Why are you angry? If you can't obtain the recognition of the divine phoenix's inheritance, then it's your own incompetence. Feng Liqiong's eyes were filled with rage. He clenched his teeth as he stared angrily at Yiqing Luo, and then stared at Patriarch Feng. With a wave of his sleeves, he turned around and walked out of the hall. No matter how Feng Clan Master shouted behind him, he didn't look back. This unfilial son, I'm so mad. Master Feng was so angry that his chest was moving up and down. He staggered back and sat on the chair. Yiqing Luo hurriedly went over and placed her slender little hand on Feng family's patriarch's shoulder. Grandfather, don't be angry. If you get angry, no one will be able to protect me. The girl's soft voice reduced Feng Clan Master's anger a lot. Listening to the young lady's words, he squinted at Diamo Xian. Isn't there someone protecting you very well? Yiqing Luo's little hands circled around the old man's neck. Isn't he protecting me on behalf of grandfather? But I still want grandfather to protect me personally. So, Grandpa, for my sake, you can't be angry anymore. Feng Clan Master was coaxed to finally show a smile. Yiqing Luo then took the opportunity to say, actually, little uncle is not angry because of the divine phoenix's inheritance. Is just too obsessed with the past. Because he cared about my mother, he trapped himself in the past. He just wanted to prove that he wasn't worse than my mother. Feng Clan Master sighed lightly. How can I not know? Feng Liqiong's greatest obsession was that Feng Gu had once ruined everything for a man. He thought he hated Feng Gu. But the so-called hatred was just because he cared too much. He stubbornly wanted to become the true emperor of divine emperors. He wanted to prove that he was as capable as Fenggu. Therefore he had been paranoid and had distorted his thoughts. On this point, this made Yiqing Luo think of Zhu Wuxian. Because of his own obsession, that man could no longer walk out of it. Actually, those disloyal nobles are already disloyal. Even if a divine emperor who has obtained the inheritance of the divine phoenix and is acknowledged by the divine emperor appears, I'm afraid it will be of no use. The people of the god world were godlike existences that stood above all the other worlds. Arrogance, conceit, and complacency were the norm. Obeying the emperor of the divine emperor was just a long-standing habit. However, the moment he harbored other thoughts in his heart, this kind of habit was easily broken. They could be their own masters. Why should he submit to others? So what if he obtained the inheritance of the divine phoenix? Obtaining the inheritance of the divine phoenix is not just to let the people in the god realm acknowledge your existence. Patriarch Feng patted the back of Yiqing Luo's hand. The target of the Palace of Darkness is you. With the divine phoenix profound heart jade, you are the best vessel. If grandfather is not by your side and Xiaoxian is not by your side, what should you do? As long as you obtain the inheritance of the divine phoenix, inherit the position of the divine emperor, and activate the Feng bloodline, you will have enough power to protect yourself. In this way, grandfather can be rest assured. 7th Miss Who Likes Trash. Lord Overlord, please be gentler and collect it. 7th Miss Who Likes Trash. Lord Overlord, please be gentler and hit me. Chapter 49-45. Yiqing Luo pursed her lips slightly, but I may not be able to get the inheritance of divine phoenix. You can. Feng family patriarch slowly held Yiqing Luo's hand and pointed at the ring and bracelet on her hand. Before Xiaogu passed away, she sealed you for thousands of years and specially sent you to the lower realm, to protect you. Xiaogu must have her reasons for doing this. These are all left by Xiaogu for you. It is also a symbol of you being her successor. Azure Dew bracelet, Azure Dew 5-piece set. These all belong to her mother. Yiqing Luo recalled that she had seen countless times in the Palace of Darkness with her mother's portrait carved on the stone wall. The top was also carved with the pattern of the Azure Dew 5-piece set. Her eyelashes fluttered slightly. That's right, Azure Dew 5-piece set could open the seal to the Emperor God's tomb. And her mother left all these for her. Didn't this already explain everything? But how to get the inheritance of divine phoenix? Even I don't know. Feng family patriarch's eyes were serious. I think, if it is Xiao Luo, there must be a way. The hope in the old man's eyes seemed to place all his hopes on her. Yiqing Luo couldn't say anything to reject. Grandfather. A mellow and husky male voice spoke respectfully. Dmo Xian stood behind Yiqing Luo and placed one hand on her slender shoulder. His thin lips curled up as he said firmly, I will accompany Xiao Luo. Feng family patriarch pulled their hands together and patted them lightly. If the two of you can be of one heart and stick to each other, I believe that everything will be solved easily. On the second day after Yiqing Luo brought the hostage Linglong back to the Feng residence, a group of people appeared at the entrance of the Feng residence. That was, dressed in black robes, they were disciples of the Palace of Darkness. Surrounded by countless of Palace of Darkness disciples and Jiang family's secret guards, they stood at the entrance of the Feng residence and handed over their visiting cards. Their leader was a man dressed in a luxurious brocade robe. He was dressed in a noble and luxurious outfit. However, the man was wearing a mask, revealing only two eyes that were as deep as the sea. The man was riding a white horse that was completely different from the rest of the team. Behind the white horse was a luxurious carriage. When Yiqing Luo saw the calling card, she went into a slight blank. Was she seeing things? This is an invitation from the Dark Nether Palace? The Dark Darkness Palace had come out from its hiding place? This was a big move. Incredible. I'm not going. A hand reached out and took the visiting card away, then threw it into the hands of the servant guarding the door. Go and reject him. Wait. Yiqing Luo's arms encircled that person's waist as she raised her head. Since Secluded Palace has invited us so openly, let's go over and take a look. He was quite curious as to what the Dark Palace was up to. No. Dmo Xian rejected Yiqing Luo's idea without any hesitation. Yiqing Luo blinked her eyes. The gloomy palace had always been hiding in a dark corner. Now he was walking out openly. There must be a reason behind it. Rather than waiting for death, he might as well go with the flow and see what the Palace of Gloomy Darkness was up to. For this point, Diamo Xian should know this too. But why was he so resistant? Yiqing Luo suddenly thought of something as she turned her head and looked at the servant who was waiting by the side. Earlier you said, this calling card, who sent it up? Trash 7th young mistress, Lord Di Zun, please be gentler with your love. Trash 7th young mistress, Lord Di Zun, please be gentler with your love. Chapter 49-46. That person called himself the palace master of the Nether Palace, the servant replied. Yiqing Luo, as expected. This was the reason for Diamo Xian's abnormal behavior. He didn't want her to have anything to do with the palace master of the Palace of Gloomy Palace, Gu Jingyu. Gu Jingyu, that had once saved her. And the man who turned her into a puppet of Netherworld Palace? He was indeed someone whom Diamo Xian was unwilling to let her get close to. After all, it was a man that she couldn't hate, yet she felt guilty about. Compared to Zhu Wuxing, Diamo Xian was even more worried about Gu Jingyu. Of course, this was not because she had any thoughts about Gu Jingyu. Instead, it was Gu Jingyu's current appearance. It was more or less to soften her heart. However, Yiqing Luo's brows rose slightly. If I didn't remember wrongly, Gu Jingyu should be in the Qiao residence in the Earth domain right now, being guarded by the World Group's brothers. Why did he appear here? The Palace of Gloomy Darkness has gotten him out again? Back then, in order to save her, Gu Jingyu had turned himself into a puppet of the Gloomy Palace. Then, the person behind the scenes from Dark Ghost Palace controlled his body. After that, after spending a Herculean effort, he forced the person behind the scenes of the Dark Palace out of Gu Jingyu's body. Therefore, she imprisoned him in the Qiao Mansion. The people from the Palace of Gloomy Darkness had not only gotten Gu Jingyu out, he had also brought Gu Jingyu to the God World. From the looks of it, they were obviously here for her. The current Gu Jingyu. Was it still that puppet from Dark Nether Palace? In any case, you are not allowed to go. Diamo Xian didn't care what Gu Jingyu's motive was. She clasped the young lady's slender waist and her deep black eyes were a sheet of darkness. Yiqing Luo was just about to say something. Another servant hurried over. Little miss, the one outside asked me to bring you a message. He said that you'd better listen to what he has to say before deciding whether or not to see him. As the servant was speaking, he was shivering under Diamo Xian's stare, almost on the verge of crying. His voice was trembling non-stop. Yiqing Luo stretched out her hands and blocked Diamo Xian's eyes, glaring at him. Don't scare me. If grandfather sees this, I'll deduct your impression points. No. Diamo Xian was incomparably calm. Grandfather wholeheartedly wants me to marry into his family. Yiqing Luo. Are you proud of marrying into his family? Yiqing Luo pinched his face and looked at the servant. Don't bother about him, carry on. The servant trembled in fear. That person outside said that young Miss Feng is living a carefree and unfettered life in the immortal realm. I believe you would like to know how your brothers are doing. If you are interested, let's meet up in the Jiang Manor. Yiqing Luo's expression suddenly congealed. Her long and narrow eyes seemed to be overflowing with light. She knew. Gu Jingyu was referring to the brothers of the World Group. What he meant was, the World Group members were in his hands. Or could it be that he knew about the World Group's current situation and wanted to share it with her? This Gu Jingyu was such a prick, and he tried every possible way to ask her to meet him. What was the reason behind it? He just felt that this was a little interesting. Don't think too much. Diamo Xian held her chin as he easily saw through the young lady's thoughts. If you want to know about the World Group's current situation, I can tell you about it. It's not like I'm not bringing you along. What's there to be anxious about? Yiqing Luo raised her hand and held his arm. If there's anything wrong, just bring me along and run. Diamo Xian put down his hand, but his brows were still tightly knitted into a bundle. Chapter 49-47. Yiqing Luo's peerless brows were like a painting, her narrow eyes curved as she smiled and stretched out her fingers, smoothing his creased brows. Following that, she glanced sideways at the servant and instructed calmly, go out and tell Master Gu that he can keep the appointment, but I'll decide the location. She wasn't silly. He tried every means to meet her. Based on the secluded palace's temperament, there was definitely a conspiracy. She wouldn't be so silly to walk right into the trap. Want to meet him? Listen to her. Very quickly, the servant came back with a reply. Gu Jingyu agreed. Yiqing Luo didn't choose a place that was too far away from the Feng residence. She chose a restaurant under Feng Liqiong's influence, and using her identity as the Feng family's young miss, She asked for a top-notch, secret room. Following that, she pulled Dmo Xian along to the appointment. When Yi Qing Luo and Dmo Xian arrived at the appointed location, Gu Jingyu was already waiting at the entrance. That gentle jade-like face hung the usual gentle smile. A pair of deep eyes stared deeply at Yi Qing Luo, his eyes filled with warmth. So warm that Yi Qing Luo had some goosebumps. When he saw Dmo Xian beside Yi Qing Luo, he wasn't too surprised as his lips curled into a smile. The relationship between the Overlord and Madame D is really as good as before. His gaze looked towards Dmo Xian as though he was joking. The Overlord is so worried Madame D meeting me privately? Looks like the threat of me to the Overlord is quite high. This is my honor. Dmo Xian gave him a cold glance, indifferently, disdainfully, as though he didn't put him in his eyes at all. It was because of this sentence from Gu Jingyu. Yi Qing Luo was certain. The person in front of her wasn't the Gu Jingyu she was familiar with. He was still that emotionless, with only Gu Jingyu's memories, the puppet of the secluded palace. Yi Qing Luo sighed softly as she held onto Dmo Xian's arm and said calmly, I'm the one who requested Xian to accompany me after all. You're from the secluded palace and I'm from the Feng family, so I'm quite afraid to meet you alone. When Gu Jingyu heard that, he actually laughed. So Madame D is afraid of me too. Of course I am. Yi Qing Luo didn't hesitate at all. For a sinister and cunning rat like the gloomy palace, and the kind that carries poison, who wouldn't be afraid of being bitten by them for no reason? Ha ha ha. Gu Jingyu laughed even louder. Should I be proud of the dark palace? Yi Qing Luo's brows sunk. This Gu Jingyu who was wearing Gu Jingyu's appearance said such words. It was like a reminder to her. Because of her, Gu Jingyu became like this. Yi Qing Luo's pink lips pursed slightly as she pulled Dmo Xian into the room and sat on the chair. Gu Jingyu waved his palm and pushed 2 cups of hot tea in front of the 2 people. Chapter 49-48. At this moment, Gu Jingyu's lips curled upwards mysteriously as his fingertip tapped lightly on the lid of his cup. Overlord Madame D, why? Don't you dare to drink tea? He laughed lowly as his gentle eyes were filled with ridicule and provocation. This is Madame D's turf. Are you afraid that I have poisoned you? The one who is afraid should be you, Palace Lord. Yi Qing Luo gave a cold harumph as she lowered her eyes onto the misty tea in the cup as her lips curled up in ridicule. Perhaps Palace Lord can give it a try, to see if your poison is stronger or mine. Of course it's Madame D. Gu Jingyu replied without any hesitation. Madame D's poison is known as the world's #1 poison. Even Miss Qinggu is unable to resist it, so how would I dare to compare with Madame D? Yi Qing Luo swept her sleeves. It was as though a flame was leaping as it rose up. The young lady's fair palm slapped onto her palm. Profound rays burst forth. The teacup floated into the air as it splashed onto Gu Jingyu's face. The boiling hot tea splashed onto Gu Jingyu's body with a whoosh. Since you know, why are you still playing such tricks in front of me? Gu Jingyu had no intention to avoid it at all. He allowed the tea to soak his luxurious brocade robe. He lowered his eyes as he watched the tea leaves swirling on his robe, but there wasn't much change in his expression. Why don't we pour this cup into Palace Lord's mouth? How about that? Yi Qing Luo's fair fingers swept across. She directly took the teacup in front of Dmo Xian into her hands. She stood up as her blazing sleeves fluttered like fire. That exquisite white jade porcelain contrasted with the red flames of the flames. It made that young lady's fair fingers emitted a jade-like luster. She walked straight towards Gu Jingyu. Madame D, I'm just joking. Gu Jingyu gave a warm smile as he immediately stood up and avoided Yi Qing Luo's outstretched hand. That jade-like fair hand flashed past his eyes. A strange glint flashed past his pupils. It was fleeting. Yi Qing Luo had no intention to force him. She placed the teacup heavily on the table in front of Gu Jingyu. I was just joking. Saying that, she turned around and returned to Dmo Xian's side. She knew it. As soon as he arrived at the restaurant, he saw Gu Jingyu waiting there. Something bad must have happened. He even wanted to poison the teacups. He wondered if his brain had been kicked by a donkey. Yi Qing Luo sat back on the chair as she raised her brows lazily. So Palace Lord's visit this time round is to ask me to cure Miss Qinggu of the poison? No. Gu Jingyu smiled and shook his head. Miss Qingji's poisoning is a personal matter between her and the Emperor Lady. If the Emperor Lady is unwilling to cure her, then it's her own bad fate. His tone was very light and indifferent. It was as if Qingji's life and death were insignificant to him. Yiqing Luo couldn't be bothered with their twists and turns. Cut the crap, I'm very busy. She stared at D. Vinegar Jar Mo Xian's pressure and brought D Mo Xian here, not to listen to his nonsense. This time round, Gu Jingyu didn't keep her in suspense. The Emperor Lady should already know the reason why secluded palace needs you, right? I don't know. Yiqing Luo lazily dug her ears. Gu Jingyu seemed as though he didn't hear anything as he smiled and continued, Don't tell me that the Emperor Lady doesn't want to see the former Emperor Lord? It was a simple sentence, but it made Yiqing Luo's smile suddenly congeal. The emotions in her charming eyes were like a whirlpool, surging with turbulent waves. Seventh Miss Who Likes Trash, Overlord, please be gentler with your love. Seventh Miss Who Likes Trash, Overlord, please be gentler with your love. Chapter 49-49. Madam Emperor, you are the key to opening the God Emperor's tomb. Gu Jingyu was very satisfied with Yiqing Luo's current expression. His smile deepened. As long as the God Emperor's tomb is opened, you will be able to meet the former Emperor of God Emperor. Yiqing Luo's brows lifted slightly, her eyes were deep and serene, like the flowing light of the stars, flickering with a few traces of treacherous coldness. But the expression on her face was calm like stagnant water without any ripples. So, the collaboration that you want to discuss is, if you open the God Emperor's tomb, secluded palace will let you in. Meet your mother. Gu Jingyu said the latter half of the sentence. His lips curled upwards, full of confidence. As though he was certain of Yiqing Luo's desire towards kinship. Yiqing Luo, this lady was good in everything. There was only one fatal flaw. That was, too much emphasis on feelings. However, everything was different from what Gu Jingyu had thought. When he finished his words, Yi Zichen was stunned. The young lady laughed instead. Does Palace Lord think I'm very silly? She pulled Mo Xian's hand, casually fiddling with his fingertips as she raised her brows and smiled. Since I can open the God Emperor's tomb, why don't I open it myself? Why don't I meet my mother on my own? What? Must I bring along this group of people to destroy my mother's resting place? The young lady said every word, her tone sounded indifferent and lazy. However, every single word was like thunder, heavily striking Gu Jingyu's heart. Her eyes narrowed slightly, revealing a cold glint. Palace Lord, you're too insincere. The way to open the God Emperor's tomb, only secluded palace knows. Gu Jingyu didn't expect Yiqing Luo to have such a reaction. Without secluded palace's help, you can forget about meeting the former Emperor of God Emperor in this lifetime. Yiqing Luo's lips curled into a lazy smile. So what? Such a reaction. It had exceeded secluded palace's original expectations. Didn't Yiqing Luo want to meet her own mother? How could she possibly reject their suggestion? Yiqing Luo slowly inserted her slender jade fingers into Mo Xian's 5 fingers, interlocking with his 10 fingers tightly. She smiled and raised her eyebrows. I have Xian. Do I need you? Haven't they heard of this saying before? With the venerable sovereign in my hands, the world is mine. Xian was here. Was he afraid that he wouldn't be able to find a way to open the tomb of the divine emperor? After all, Xian had gone to the base of the Palace of Darkness. He had been searching for this method. What was there for her to be afraid of? Yiqing Luo's laughter was melodious and mellow, like pearls falling onto a plate, very pleasant to the ears. As she smiled, she raised her eyebrows and looked at Gu Jingyu. However, Palace Master specifically came to talk to me about this transaction. You told me a piece of information. Without me, your Palace of Gloomy Shadows could not have entered the tomb of the godly emperor. After Yiqing Luo finished this sentence with a smile, her pink lips curled up even more, as the corners of her eyes added a few long and narrow seductive ripples. Her lips curled up frivolously as she said word by word, So, you're not able to take out something of equal value, so what kind of transaction do you want to discuss with me? Black mist surged in Gu Jingyu's eyes. His gentle jade-like face turned chilly. Palace Master, please leave. She pulled Mo Xian as she stood up. After you've thought of what to use to trade with me, then come look for me at the Phoenix residence. Saying that, she pulled Mo Xian as she walked past Gu Jingyu and left the room. Seventh young miss who likes trash. Overlord, please be gentler with your love. Seventh young miss who likes trash. Overlord, please be gentler with your love. Chapter 49-50. Gu Jingyu sat on the chair in a daze. Until the young lady walked past him. He abruptly regained his senses. He stood up abruptly and turned his head over. His line of sight fell onto the young lady and the man's hands. From the beginning till the end, their fingers were clasped together. Wait. Wait. Inexplicably, the voice of stopping had already spilled out from his mouth. His gentle face at this moment was filled with a complicated emotion. His deep black eyes stared intently at her hand. The fiery young lady paused her footsteps, tilted her head to look at him, her long and narrow eyes calm and indifferent. Gu Jingyu's throat tightened. He just stared at Yiqing Luo, staring at their clasped hands. The bottom of his heart felt as if there were dense needles pricking. He didn't know why he called out to her. He also didn't know why he felt so depressed at this moment. The bottom of his heart felt as if there was a huge net densely covering his heart, making him unable to find the answer to his abnormal emotions. Palace Lord Gu. A cold mellow voice as if 1,000 years of ice was transmitted into Gu Jingyu's ears. He regained his senses. In front of him, that fiery red-robed young lady was already in the arms of a man in purple robe tightly sealed, revealing only half of her exquisite face. That absolute possessive posture, noble and elegant with a threatening tone, "Please conduct yourself with dignity." The words fell. The man carried the young lady by the waist and walked away. In a blink of an eye, he disappeared in front of his eyes. It was at this moment. Gu Jingyu's body suddenly seemed to be exhausted, as he sat heavily on the ground. Conduct himself? Conduct himself? His gaze and demeanor earlier. What exactly did it look like? Why, the Overlord asked him to conduct himself. And it was that kind of warning and absolute possessive posture. It was as if he had some improper thoughts towards Yiqing Luo. Improper thoughts. But that was in the past. The current him should not have any feelings towards her. Why, his heart felt so uncomfortable. Ha! A light chuckle was heard from not too far away. Gu Jingyu suddenly raised his eyes vigilantly. What entered his eyes was a section of fiery red robe. The bright fiery color made his eyes reveal a ray of light. Yiqing. Before he could finish his sentence, the expression on Gu Jingyu's face gradually froze. That wasn't Yiqing Luo. Instead, he was dressed in red, but his face was extremely cold. He frowned slightly and slowly stood up. Pavilion Master Chu, how have you been? If this person in front of him was not Zhu Wuxin, who could it be? Chu Wuxin stood in front of Gu Jingyu, his fiery red robe fluttering in the wind. But that cold and arrogant temperament. However, it suppressed the beauty brought about by the red dress. How pitiful! Zhu Wuxin looked at Gu Jingyu and asked, not understanding what he meant. Gu Jingyu frowned. What do you mean? You don't even have the heart to love someone. Pitiful and lamentable. Zhu Wuxian's voice was cold, and there was not much fluctuation in it. Gu Jingyu frowned even more. At this moment, Zhu Wuxian glanced sideways at him with an unclear meaning. Are you really willing to give Yiqing Luo to Diamo Xian? Back at Feng Manor. Feng family's patriarch and Feng Liqiong were in a heated argument. The two children had already been brought by Grandma Feng to a place further away to play. Yiqing Luo had just stepped into the main hall. She was shocked by the vase which was thrown towards her. Diamo Xian's reaction was swift. He caught the vase with one hand and used the other to pull the young lady behind him, blocking in front of him. Trash 7th young mistress. Lord Di Zun, please be gentler with your love. Trash 7th young mistress. Lord Di Zun, please be gentler with your love. Chapter 49-51. The entire house was in a mess. The return of the two made the quarreling father and son to stop. Yiqing Luo carefully poked her head out and hugged the vase in Diamo Xian's hands tightly as she walked over. Are you two trying to demolish the house? Don't you know that everything in the house is very expensive? She put the vase back in place and turned to look at Feng Liqiong. Why? The minute I'm not at home you start quarreling? Feng family's patriarch was about to speak. Yiqing Luo had already walked over to Feng Liqiong. Uncle, do you want to explain to me why did you start a fight with grandfather? Feng Liqiong's face darkened with a, I'm mad, don't provoke me attitude. It indeed looked scary. Little Luo, don't talk so much with him, his brain is spoiled. Feng family's patriarch gave his son an angry stare. Towards Feng Liqiong's black face, Yiqing Luo wasn't afraid at all. She walked over to Feng Liqiong and sat down, staring straight at Feng Liqiong. Staring so hard that Feng Liqiong's heart was flustered as he stared back with a black face. What are you looking at? Look at you now, what do you look like? Yi Qingluo replied indifferently, if mother knew that you and grandfather fought, she would definitely be very upset. The moment this sentence came out, Feng Liqiong's pupils suddenly contracted. His black face instantly covered with frost. She's upset? If she knew that she's upset, she wouldn't have abandoned the Feng family. If she really didn't care, how would she pass away? Yi Qingluo's voice was very calm. Uncle, you are the brother that mother values the most, you are her pride, what do you think? Now that you've become like this, what kind of blow would it be to her? You can be angry at mother's desperate actions for love, you can be angry at my appearance, but you can't be angry at grandfather. He is an elder, your father, mother's father. Uncle, this. Not only mother will be disappointed, I will also be disappointed in you. The young lady stared at Feng Liqiong, enunciating each word firmly. That pair of charming eyes, from the original enthusiasm, gradually became dim and cold. She stood up, seemingly utterly disappointed. She didn't look at him anymore. If little uncle feels that he really has to continue like this, that everyone in the world has let you down, and that he has to live like this, I have nothing to say. She walked to Master Feng and held Master Feng's arm. Grandpa, let's go. I want to discuss something about my mother with you. Feng family's patriarch walked out of the messy room under Yi Qingluo's support. But when she reached the door, she turned to look at Feng Liqiong. Grandfather, don't worry. Yi Qingluo's lips curled craftily as she winked at Patriarch Feng and whispered, he will follow along. In the study, Yi Qingluo asked Patriarch Feng to take a seat. Diamo Xian immediately poured a cup of warm tea and sent it to Patriarch Feng. Just as he sat down, the door of the study was opened with a bang. Feng Liqiong walked in with an air of viciousness. Yi Qingluo winked at Patriarch Feng. See, she said Feng Liqiong would come. Patriarch Feng sighed helplessly. When he raised his eyes to look at Feng Liqiong, he put on a straight face and said angrily, what are you following me for? This matter concerns the Feng family, why can't I come? Feng Liqiong said righteously. Yi Qingluo patted Patriarch Feng's hand and gave him a way out. Grandfather, this matter does require uncle's help. Chapter 4952. Feng family patriarch's expression eased up, but he still snorted coldly. It's good enough that he doesn't create trouble, what can he do to help? Yi Qingluo smiled as she changed the topic. I just met the mistress of the Palace of Nether Palace and roughly know the other party's motive. Mentioning this point, Feng family patriarch's expression changed slightly. The Palace of Nether Palace are getting more and more daring. Now that they dare to come out from the dark, I think they have already made full preparations. According to my guess, the real mastermind of the Palace of Nether Palace should be suppressed by something. Yi Qingluo recalled the last time when the mastermind possessed Gu Jingyu's body. Her brows creased slightly, and now the other party directly appeared openly. I'm afraid the mastermind has or is about to recover his peak power. She had never crossed hands with the mastermind of the Palace of Nether Palace, but it was only under the situation where his power was suppressed and his body was restricted. When she faced the mastermind of the Palace of Nether Palace, the pressure was multiplied. Not to mention, the other party was at his peak. Probably not fully recovered. Diamo Xian stretched out his hand under the table and quietly held the young lady's little hand. The warm palm dispelled the young lady's uneasy emotions. If he had recovered, he wouldn't have asked Gu Jingyu to specially look for you to cooperate. The man's words made Yi Qingluo suddenly thought of something as her eyes flashed. You mean? The mastermind of the Palace of Nether Palace wants to open the God Emperor's tomb, is because they want to make use of the tomb to recover their own power? Moreover, the other party urgently needs the power of the God Emperor's tomb, so at this most crucial juncture he couldn't wait to look for me to request for cooperation? Thinking of this, it made sense. What did you say? Feng family patriarch's reaction was huge as he suddenly put down the teacup in his hand and stared at Yi Qingluo with wide eyes. God Emperor's tomb? The Palace of Nether Palace wants to open the God Emperor's tomb? When this sentence came out of Feng family patriarch's mouth carefully, even Feng Liqiong's expression became extremely tense and unsightly. Yi Qingluo nodded. I want to tell you this matter. Palace of Nether Palace needs me to open the God Emperor's tomb. How could they know about the Divine Emperor's tomb? How is it possible to find the tomb of the Divine Emperor? Master Feng was shocked. Feng Liqiong suddenly grabbed Yiqing Luo's arm. Secluded palace. Know where the God Emperor's tomb is? Diamo Xian was just about to stretch out his hand to stop Feng Liqiong. Yiqing Luo silently shook her head at him, then her vision shot towards Feng Liqiong. The man's handsome face was devoid of any color. A pair of widened black eyes rippled with layers of ripples. The two hands that were clasping her wrists didn't have much strength and were even trembling slightly. Yiqing Luo pursed her pink lips as she shook her head. I don't know, the other party only said. I am the key to opening the God Emperor's tomb, and secluded darkness palace has a way to let me meet. Mother. When the last two words left his mouth, Feng Liqiong's body stiffened. Both his hands seemed to have no strength left. Yiqing Luo's wrist. He slumped into the chair in disappointment. Sister? Can I see my sister? He muttered softly as though he was possessed. Although Feng family patriarch was shocked, but he still had some rationality. His white brows knitted tightly. Can the Palace of Nether Palace's words be trusted? Seventh Miss who likes trash. Overlord, please be gentler with your love. Seventh Miss who likes trash. Overlord, please be gentler with your love. Chapter 49-53. Yiqing Luo touched her chin and pondered for a moment. Generally speaking, it's not trustworthy. And even if what he said is true, if I really agree to cooperate with him, I'm afraid that before I even see my mother, the first thing he will do after achieving his goal is... Yiqing Luo paused for a moment as she suppressed her voice and curled her lips lightly. That's right, kill me. She glanced at the dazed Feng Liqiong and emphasized, no matter if what the Palace of Darkness said is true or false. We don't need to rely on their power to enter the Divine Emperor's tomb. If what the Palace of Darkness said is true, won't we still be able to see my mother after we enter the tomb? Why would we need to cooperate with the Palace of Darkness? But... Feng Liqiong, who had been silent, opened his mouth. His voice was very hoarse and his pitch-black eyes stared deeply at Yiqing Luo. Do you know? Where is the Divine Emperor's tomb? Yiqing Luo's pink lips moved, but in the end, she didn't say anything. Feng family's patriarch sighed softly. Back then Xiao had already predicted her own consequences, so early on she had already set up her tomb. An extremely mysterious place that was hidden in all the realms. Even us relatives don't know where the Divine Emperor's tomb is. This also led to the rumor that our Feng family has treasures. Hidden treasures of the former Divine Emperor. But if there were treasures, Feng Liqiong wouldn't have schemed Yiqing Luo in the future. Yiqing Luo raised her eyes as her eyes revealed a certain resolute glint. She opened her mouth and her voice was sonorous. I intend to go to the Divine Emperor's tomb to take a look, perhaps. I can obtain the Divine Phoenix's inheritance. The young lady's clear voice drilled into everyone's eardrums. Feng family's patriarch's expression congealed slightly as his eyes were filled with worry. Xiao Luo, do you know where the Divine Emperor's tomb is? Feng Liqiong looked at her with a hopeful look. Yiqing Luo nodded. Perhaps the rumor outside. And what little uncle is looking for, and what the Palace of Darkness is trying to get. Feng family's treasure is in my hands. The atmosphere was tense. The entire study room fell into a strange silence. After a long while, Feng Liqiong's head stiffened as she stared fixedly at Yiqing Luo. On, you? There was a raging fire burning in his eyes. As long as she nodded. In the next instant he reached out to snatch it. Yiqing Luo's expression didn't change as she raised her brows slightly. Instead she met Feng Liqiong's gaze and smiled. Yes, it's on me, so? Little uncle wants to snatch it? She was very straightforward. It was so straightforward that the fire in Feng Liqiong's eyes was gradually extinguished. He took a look at Diamo Xian, then looked at Patriarch Feng and roared angrily. You have these two people to protect you, what can I snatch from you? I'm just angry. The Feng family's treasure is really on you and you still lied to me. Previously, I really didn't know what the Feng family's treasure was. Yiqing Luo spread out her hands. Today, it was only after Palace Lord Gu's reminder that I roughly guessed it. Feng Liqiong snorted coldly. Like hell I'd believe you. Patriarch Feng pulled Yiqing Luo's hand. Little Luo, is what you said true? Feng family really has a treasure? Yiqing Luo nodded. If I didn't guess wrongly, it should be something like this, that's right. She gave Patriarch Feng a gentle smile as she held Patriarch Feng's hand. Seventh young miss who likes trash. Overlord, please be gentler with your love. Seventh young miss who likes trash. Overlord, please be gentler with your love. Chapter 4954. Grandfather, Xian and I will go search for the God Emperor's tomb first. Yiqing Luo said, as long as we enter the God Emperor's tomb before the Palace of Darkness, their plans will be completely messed up. Gu Jingyu would come knocking at their door at this juncture. This meant that the mastermind behind the Palace of Darkness, they already had a new plan. If they wanted to cut off the Palace of Darkness's ambition, they could only enter the God Emperor's tomb before the Palace of Darkness, to dig out all the secrets of the God Emperor's tomb. In this way the Palace of Darkness's plan would fail, and they would be able to suppress the Palace of Darkness's ambition. As compared to the Palace of Darkness, she was the descendant of the Emperor of God Emperor, the owner of the Divine Phoenix Profound Heart Jade, the owner of the Azure Water 5-piece set. The chances of winning were higher. No way. Feng family's patriarch rejected without a second thought. Since the Palace of Darkness has already sent out the invitation, that means that the people from the Palace of Darkness have their eyes on you. If you go now, wouldn't it be extremely dangerous? She would think so. The people from the Palace of Darkness would naturally think so too. How would the Palace of Darkness allow Yiqing Luo to enter the Emperor of God Emperor's tomb? Probably following behind Yiqing Luo silently. After finding the God Emperor's tomb, wouldn't Yiqing Luo be in danger? Even with DMO Shen by her side, it would be difficult for her to fight against so many enemies. There was absolutely no way to be assured. Yiqing Luo's lips curled up slightly, her smile was firm and had a calming charisma. Grandfather, I understand your concerns. Don't worry, since I've chosen to head to the God Emperor's tomb, I'm already prepared. How could I possibly bear to let someone dirty my mother's resting place? Feng family's patriarch was filled with words to stop her. But when he met the young lady's firm eyes, he was so stunned that he couldn't say another word. His throat tightened. All his unwillingness and worries turned into a long sigh. Grandfather. DMO Shen's mellow voice spoke gently, I will use my life to protect Lil Luo, whatever you're worried about, I will absolutely not let it happen. He stood up and cupped his fists towards Feng family's patriarch. Bit by bit, he lowered his noble head. Grandfather, please hand Lil Luo, over to me. Please, trust us. Each and every word was forceful and sonorous. The heart of the Feng clan master was shaking and it was pounding. After a long while, he lowered his head. I can't control the two of you. Do whatever you want. Yiqing Luo smiled and stretched out her hand to hug Feng family's patriarch's neck. She smiled intimately. Grandfather, how can I bear to let you be sad because of me? So, don't worry, I will definitely protect myself.